We will begin the story of a world in which chaos reigns. People try to save themselves in panic. Flames of flames light up cities as a pretext for an imminent disaster. An era has come to an end. Terrifying creatures of the dungeons emerge from clouds of smoke and fire that, for unknown reasons, have begun to appear throughout the world. The monsters of the dungeons spread a sinister aura that filled the air with threat and chaos. The destructive aura spread rapidly, affecting all human organs, gradually corrupting the mind and depriving people of humanity. The show was horrible. People literally became living corpses. Screams and despair were heard all over the world. At that same moment when humanity was on the verge of extinction, and the monsters with their deadly aura already seemed invincible, the awakened appeared. Their eyes burned with a fire that became the last ray of hope. The awakened possess superpowers called skills that give them the strength to face threats, and have become monster hunters, becoming the last shield between humanity and destruction. The awakened knight fights against the huge monster using his unique skills, and wins the battle successfully. His skill is that he can create weapons from monsters that he will use to kill other monsters. He is also able to control his power, but this is not his only skill but one of many. Suddenly, a huge cyclope appeared on the horizon, and the system notified the protagonist that it was a unique monster. Gathering his will in one hand, the young man activates the skill on his previously murdered victim and receives a magic sword. The cyclope does not stay behind and throws his blow, but does not think that the awakening is not so simple and will activate his flying step skill and avoid the damage of the claw. Waiting for such a trick from the monster, the young man activates a new skill, Dicky Thread, that is obtained when killing a giant spider. To avoid sudden attacks from the bruiser, the boy immobilizes him with a net. At the end of the combat training before the murder, the system informs the awakened about the reception of new titles. Full of confidence and strength that was boiling inside him, the boy balances himself with full confidence. "I wonder what kind of sword you will make?" asked the hero with a smile. With eyes full of hate and madness, the guy knocked down the bruiser with a skillful blow. This fight was simply fun for him. The enemy was defeated, as expected from a hero, because people called him the legendary swordsman, and his name was Toji Nanace. From a very young age, the young man, without talent since birth, overcame himself every day. He had to defeat many enemies to protect his loved ones, and as a result he became the strongest. Harvesting the fruits of his triumphant victory, the boy acquires a new skill by absorbing the cyclope, and receives an impressive size sword that emphasizes his legendary title. When the disaster occurred, the man was near one of the centers of power of another world. It was then that he met for the first time the monsters that began to fill the planet. He was very scared. The fear took over his whole body, not allowing him to move. Without being able to believe that this was happening in reality, the only thing he could do was scream hysterically. The scream was so loud that it drew the boundaries between reality and fantasy. A bright light entered through the window, illuminating the entire room. The man found himself in his bed and realized that, fortunately, it had only been a dream. The news reported that several coagulos of magical energy were in the X area. Only the awakened or technically equipped specialists can get rid of them. Suddenly, the main character was called by his worried little sister. Her name was Miyu. She was worried because her brother left early to work and returned very late. Toshi explains to Miyu that he has been very busy lately. His sister responds by threatening him that he will not leave home hungry. The boy looks at his sister with inspiration, because it has only been 2 years since they were left alone and almost lost in debt. The parents of Nanace are portrayed as a loving couple who gives orientation to their little son as if they radiated all the love of the world. They tell the hero to always be kind to others. After all, no one likes insensitive people, their parents tell them. The boy enthusiastically captures each of his words. His parents were willing to help anyone, even when they themselves needed help. When the hero was still a child, some debt collectors came to him and his sister, demanding that they pay the debts of their deceased parents. They did not have money to pay their debts, and a man in a black suit offered to take his sister to save them. Toshi did not like it. It is not known what would have happened to Miyu if he had allowed her to be taken away at that time. I will prepare you more lunch, said the sister happily, smiling at the main character. The boy looks at Mia with inspiration, thinking that no matter what happens, he still follows his parents' advice for the sake of his sister. Remembering how difficult it was for them to live in peace now, Toshi apologizes to Miyu for everything. You have nothing to apologize for, said the sister while he was fervently moving through the kitchen. After all, it is my fault that you have to get out of your way, says Miyu with pity. She did not want that fate for her brother. It is not your fault. The boy tried to support the girl because it was his choice to protect her. Time was running, it was time to go to work. Taking the lunch that Miyu had carefully prepared, Toshi was getting ready to go. In the corner notes a training stick from Kendo, something he liked before. Now there is no time for hobbies. Take care of my sister, an unknown threat in the world. If he could fight monsters at the same level as hunters, how would he have changed his life? With a slight movement he would cut the monsters one after the other. He would be the savior of the earth. But that does not matter, because he does not have any outstanding talent. He is a common person. The morning in the office full of employees. The daily routine is diluted with the resonant voice of a girl who comes to Nanase in search of help. A girl in a formal suit begs a boy to take her place. He knows that he has a difficult life, but he asks him to be kind. Toshi accepts to replace her. The colleague thanks the boy with enthusiasm and leaves. The man sitting at the table knew that Nanase would accept to replace the girl, which he said with confidence. The colleagues comment that the work that the girl had to do was very dangerous, and that she really did not want to do it. He had heard that after a great escape of magical energy, the doors of the dungeon would normally open. The protagonist heard his conversation and worried, because the consequences could be irreversible. The hero's thoughts about the doors not opening so often are interrupted by common sense. He will simply measure the level of magical energy and everything will be fine. An impatient colleague yells at the young man, asking him to get in the car immediately, because they are already late. The men comment how the concentrated magical energy has frozen in front of the doors of the dungeon, becoming a magic stone, and that they pay a lot for those stones. The boy reflects that those stones could generate a lot of money, but extracting them is very dangerous. Despite the high risk, the boy understands that he actually has no choice. He is a common employee. Upon reaching his destination, they discover the huge stone they were looking for. A huge hole in the middle of the road was sealed with a blue magic stone. The danger was felt in the air, because behind the stone there was a door to the dungeon. The man ordered Ananas to measure the magical energy stored in the stone, and the young man began to obey the order without questioning it. Dressed in a protective suit, the boy complains that he always gets dirty work. The size of the stone was impressive. It looked like a huge iceberg in the middle of the ocean. His hypnotic energy was amazing. The guy took out a device that looked like a flashlight and began to measure the magical energy. The boy looked at the results of the measurement and was surprised. The device showed 1,000 megapascals, which immediately informed his colleagues. The man was inspired by this news, and repeated after the hero how much magical energy was stored in this stone. This news must be communicated to the management as quickly as possible. The happy colleagues have already returned running to the truck. The main character did not care much about the fat prize. He was happy that everything went well, and the only thing he could think about was how he wanted to go home with his sister. All the staff ran back to the office. They had had a good fishing today. The driver realized that the bright sunny day had given way to the darkness of the night. Something was wrong. A bright blue crystal suddenly appeared on his way, forcing the driver to maneuver to avoid a collision. The panic in the truck grew. They could not believe what they saw. The doors of the dungeon opened. Portal was formed. Scale was immense. The road was illuminated by its bright flame. The people, the cars, everyone on the street were absorbed by its domain, breaking the gravity of the earth. Fear and screams were heard everywhere. Toji could not believe that they were in the middle of something that could have been avoided. The truck in which the main character was found quickly abandoned its usual location and ran after everyone else towards the blue flame. The guy returns to himself. He is still in the same truck. There is nothing around. He does not understand what happened and where they ended up. His car ended up in the middle of a huge cave, and they found each other in another world. Nanace realizes where they are now. The doors have opened, and they are in the dungeon. Realizing that they are not monster hunters, the hero understands the situation they are in, and they need to get out of there as quickly as possible. A companion shouts that we have to get out of the car quickly. Outside, a group of monsters were already waiting for them, having gone out to investigate the situation in response to the unknown noise. Having hidden themselves in the eyes of the predators, they were horrified at the size of the monsters. They were kobolds, ferocious dogs. From a jump they destroyed an unknown object for them, with the hope of obtaining a reward. The driver was very upset because his truck had reached its end, and his partner explained to him that he needed to run, before they finished where the car had been. Running away from the threat, the protagonist reflects that his only hope of salvation has been destroyed. The young man is angry because all problems always fall on his head. It's unfair. The boys ran a lot, recovered their breath a little, and they were frozen in front of what they saw in front of them. They were not the only ones who survived after falling into the dungeon. There were women, men, children, all wondering how to find an exit. They were all absorbed by the dungeon too. Anais reasoned. It was a terrible image. Common people ended up in a place full of monsters, several times bigger than them. A man with glasses asks the crowd if there is anyone here who knows how to fight. Toji's companions said they could defend themselves and fight a little, and that they also had weapons with them. The protagonist hears a loud cough coming from the corner of the refuge. The mother hugs her worried son. Without understanding at all how to help him deal with the cough, Anais suggested that the child's mother put a protective suit on him. He explains that this way he can breathe better, and his mother thanks him with fear. The boy calls Anais' brother and asks him to go to his house. With a smile on his face, the rescued child sincerely thanks Toji for saving his life. Upon receiving the gratitude, the boy understands that he did everything right. The noise and screams interrupt his idol, and everyone in the refuge is worried. The cowards have found them. They need to run as fast as possible to save themselves. Not everyone has the opportunity to leave the place of the attack. The mother and the child are paralyzed by fear, and the protagonist warns them that they will not have time to escape. He makes a firm decision to face the monsters, and asks his companions to do it, because they say they know how to fight and have weapons. The guy, armed with a device for his work, gave orders to the boys. He would distract the monster and they would finish him off. Without much enthusiasm, his companions join his adventure. Fear is reflected in their eyes. Gathering their will in one fist, the main character attacks the monster. By releasing an immobilizing network from his device, the monster is immobilized. All that was left was to kill the huge monster. The guy swung on him with knives, but Cobalt was fighting for his life and kicked hard. Attacking Toji, the companions could not kill the monster, because their strength surpassed theirs several times. Containing the beast, Nana asked to finish off the monster right now. The scared companions were paralyzed by fear. This monster inspired fear with its agility and size. "No, we won't do that. Do you want to bring us a trap?" said the man. While fear completely dominated his mind, Toji, disconcerted by the statement of his colleagues, was paralyzed by fear. While his team was fleeing and he was in the clutches of a fierce monster, the hero asked them to come in and help him. Realizing that he had no one else to trust except himself, the boy had to face Cobalt one-on-one. With a powerful kick, Nana knocked down the monster. The fight was hard, but he managed to face the predator and save his life. All he cared about now was to find a way to get out of the dungeon. Trying desperately to find a way out, the protagonist discovers that he is being chased by the elves. A huge figure was visible later. If he ran towards the others now, he would bring trouble to everyone. He needed to think about how to get out of the situation himself. A large ogre with a sharp dagger in the forehead looked threateningly at the guy. 3 goblins, greedy for profit, were waiting for him behind. There was nowhere to retreat. He was surrounded. A huge monster jumped on him. The ogre threw a devastating blow but failed. He miraculously saved Nana's life. When he noticed a sword on the ground, he immediately grabbed it. Having assumed the posture he had learned in kendo classes, the hero was ready for battle. Since he had no other option, the ogre immediately attacked the guy. For this reason, he was hit in the head with the tip of a sword. Toji was glad to have managed to counterattack and shouted with joy that he could do it. Due to his joy, the boy lost his vigilance. and did not realize how the second ogre appeared behind and hit him on the side. After knocking down the hero, the crowd hit him all over the body. "Damn it, I knew this would not come out," said the guy hit. As he was losing consciousness, the boy wondered if this was all he deserved. Suddenly he remembered who he had been fighting all this time, and why he was still alive for his sister. When he returned, Nana noticed something bright and radiant behind the crowd of monsters, similar to a chest. The chest, which was rumored to have been made of divine silver by hunters, was so attractive that more than 6 chests of this type were never found. It is said that these chests contain relics of dungeons, valuable artifacts and extremely rare weapons. "Everything or nothing," the hero said, recomposing himself. He risked becoming the owner of the chest's treasure. He crossed the first ogre he found with his sword. The ogre was not satisfied with this disposition, and hit his opponent again. Toji did not lose his composure, and threw the recently defeated duende against the huge monster. The duende hits Orc in the face. It was not a fatal blow, but it was enough to distract the monster and the hero could slide into the chest. The chest was large and definitely contained a worthy reward. The guy opened the chest with the hope of saving himself. He discovers an old parchment, and that's all, a piece of useless paper, the hero wondered. Hope quickly abandoned him. The boy was playing with the parchment for too long, and the ogre hit him hard on the back. As a result, the boy fell to the ground instantly and began to lose consciousness due to pain. At the edge of life and death, he saw his parents, who smiled at him as if nothing had happened, telling him that he needed to be more kind to the world. "Damn this kindness. I followed my parents' advice all my life, and what did that take me to?" The hero was angry. "Hey, you're the treasure of the dungeon." The guy turned towards the parchment in a delirious way. "Then help me," he screamed with all his might, begging the mysterious treasure to regain consciousness and respond to his cry for help. The hero's hand extended towards the last ray of hope, towards the parchment. "I have to go back," he screamed, cheering himself up as the pain took over his entire body. The organization moved to finally end the annoying man. The hero thought that the motivation to return with his little sister and protect her was stronger than death. Tagi activated the parchment. The magic ability converter was activated. The goal of Tagi Nanace was recognized. There were no non-awakened abilities. Suddenly, a voice in the hero's head spoke. "The ability will be selected depending on the situation. An analysis is carried out. The ability of the magical sword is selected. The system has analyzed the enemies and has activated the corresponding ability. The subject Tagi Nanace has awakened," concluded the system, rewarding the hero with an armor and the ability he needed in battle. "Have I really become a hunter?" said the hero, looking at his new image. I couldn't believe his transformation. Tagi felt an incredible power within himself. The nearby monsters also felt it, so they were now afraid of the hero. The treasure gave him the ability to create swords from killed monsters. Cobalt was the first to decide to enter battle with the updated hero. With a loud grunt, he flinched at the guy. Tagi gave the fatal blow to the monster's head. "The goal is Cobalt, a unique species." The hero's ability voice spoke again. "The magical sword of the lycanthropus has been created," said the voice, showing the ability to make swords in all its splendor. The duendes looked horrifically at what the hero had done to the monster, realizing that the same fate was waiting for them. Nanace used the ability stored in the magical sword. It was a flying step. The lightning chased all the enemies. The hero easily crossed over to each of them, without giving them time to attack. After facing their opponents, he realizes that there are several more monsters lurking in the shadows. They cannot escape him, thought the hero as he created a sword from a unique species of duende. "The duende's magical sword has been created," said the voice. The boy acquired the ability of night vision. Now he could easily see who was hiding in the darkness. The explorers did not expect to reveal their location. They had to escape while they had the opportunity. Without further ado, the hero destroyed this group of monsters. "Well, we have already taken care of these creatures," said the hero. An angry and slow-moving organ attacked the guy behind him. But the hero's reactions were already better than the previous times, and he could easily dodge. Toji counterattacked the body of his enemy, but his muscles were stronger than expected. He blocked the next orc attack with his magical swords. "Attention, the magical sword has broken due to overload and requires repair," said the voice. The hero did not need to be fixed. He had a better idea. From the monsters killed, he quickly created swords. The swords were sent directly to Orga. The monster easily deflected one sword after another. His thick skin was not so easy to pierce. The monster did not realize how one of the swords flew quickly towards his face. He did not have enough reaction time to block or dodge it. The tip of the sword entered his left eye, reducing his field of vision. A burst of swords fell on the weakened orc. They pierced his arms and legs. The monster screamed in pain. He could not dodge them. "You cannot follow me, crooked," the hero thought with an obvious smile, as he silently approached the monster. Having hit the enemy's back with a strong blow, he also disappeared. The monster screamed for the pain that went through his whole body. Orc forces were running out. He could barely stand up. The hero allowed himself to forget kindness for once, because he was interested in what kind of sword would make this huge monster. With a powerful blow, he separated the head of his opponent from his body. "That's all," thought the hero with uncertainty, because the flood of monsters seemed endless. As he recovered from the intense battle, the hero was surprised by his strength. He has won, and a voice suggests him to create a sword from orc, to which the boy immediately accepts. The sword was of an impressive size. It had a singularity of 2 stars, and the guy also received the ability of demonic improvement. Nanace pointed out that magical weapons also have a range like hunters. The rocks began to fall from the roof of the cave. The dungeon began to collapse due to the defeat of the boss. Toji ran to look for an exit. He did not want to stay there at all. He notices something with his night vision ability. At the bottom of the cave there were 2 human figures. One of them belonged to his partner who abandoned him and let him die. The second was his driver. Karma exists after all, thought the hero. And he hoped that at least the mother and the son would have managed to escape. Now he is completely sure that he will see his little sister again. The huge doors illuminated the area. There were people around. They were rescuing the victims who were leaving there, and they were ready for the attack of the uninvited guests. 5 kobolds are approaching. The girl warned the hunters about the imminent threat. The monsters did not make us wait long. Huge and with fangs, they came out with the hope of having a feast. The monster hunters quickly took care of the guests. 2 slimes are coming after them, the man announced, ordering the hunters to freeze or electrocute them. Really, someone defeated the boss. But how? Nobody gave the order. One of the hunters was surprised. It was difficult for them to defeat all the monsters because there were more and more. "Hunters, keep calm and do not lose control of the situation." He tried to reassure the worried team. The dispatcher of the Hunter Association, Yoichi Ariaki, "If a monster appears that you cannot control, Lanmei will cover you." An ace under the sleeve of Yoichi, instantly calming the hunters. The hunters encountered waves of monsters at the door, and a figure was visible behind them. His name is Ding Lanmei and is the 3rd most powerful hunter in the country. Normally, the cleaning of the dungeon is done as follows, Lanmei explains. "First, the professionals take care of the little monsters, and then they fight with the boss. And this is what happens if you do everything exactly the opposite." The girl concludes. All the remaining monsters, not wanting to disappear along with the dungeon, flee from there in panic. All the qualified hunters know the order. Who is this idiot? Who raped her? Ding is angry because someone neglected rules so simple but important. The dispatcher says that the infractor will be invited to the association to be interrogated. Yoichi is outraged. Where is the detachment of promised soldiers? If they delay, the association will recover it. Suddenly, it was reported that the magic stone began to grow rapidly. It is warned that a huge monster will appear at any time. The faster the magic stone grows, the stronger the monster that approaches becomes, sometimes stronger than the boss. "Hunters, get ready," Yoichi ordered. The group was on alert. Everyone froze in anticipation of a powerful monster. Ding Lanmei also prepared to attack in case the hunters were defeated. A huge monster appeared walking slowly. The hero stopped flustered. He was surprised by the people around him. He had never seen a dungeon before. Seeing the aggressive crowd with weapons, he realized they were monster hunters. They were probably about to enter the dungeon, suggested the guy. That same mother and that same son were healthy and safe. The hero exhaled because he was so worried about them. They were completely defenseless. Surround him, Yoichi ordered suddenly. The hunters began to slowly approach the monster from all sides, giving him less space to maneuver. Do not let him cross the cordon, shouted the hunter to his companions. The dispatcher was surprised and assumed that the monster looked like a golem or a specter. It was found that the power of this monster exceeded 10,000 megapascals. That means it is not weaker than a middle-level boss. Yoichi was horrified. Upon learning of this information, the hunters became tense. The dungeon bosses rarely earn 5,000 megapascals, but here they had double. The Hunter Association was in a difficult situation. If they do not manage to defeat the monster, they will have to ask for reinforcements. Toji stood in the middle of the street, afraid to move. It seemed that he was beginning to understand something. The association confused him with a monster, and the young man became very tense when he realized this fact. I have 10,000 megapascals, even 5,000 are enough to instantly kill a person. Why am I so dangerous? Nanace reasoned about his strength. The order to attack sounded, and all the hunters launched into battle. What should I do? Thought the scared hero. If he runs away, the innocents will suffer. They will surely not hear him. A false move and they will finish him. But if he dies, he will never see or protect his little sister again. It is difficult for a young man to make a decision, because his life and that of other people depend on it. Suddenly his thoughts are interrupted by the voice of the skill system. You are exhausted. The next battle will require significant effort. It is recommended to withdraw and deactivate the skill, informs the voice. If it is deactivated, it will return to its normal state to restore its energy, continues the voice. Toji found out that once deactivated, it would be impossible to track him. He decided to escape and deactivate. Perhaps this was his only option of salvation. Disappear from the sight of the hunters. Lanmei noticed his movements and thought he was up to something. Therefore, he decided to act preventively, took out his sword and launched into battle. The hero quickly went up to the house and began to run at full speed. But Din did not want to release his prey so easily, and ran after him. She reached the monster with a look full of hatred. The girl activated her ability, the Sword of Kagura, and took the first blow. The boy noticed that his sword pierced the armor as if it were butter. He was afraid to imagine what would have happened if he had not dodged it. The hunter's movements were abrupt. Nanace remembered that she had heard about her somewhere. That same Chinese sword Din Lanmei. Her gaze was sharper than her sword. When she realized who she was dealing with, she immediately activated her flying step ability. And she began to quickly increase the distance between the girl and him. But she stepped on his heels, and he decided to make the step more difficult for her. And he threw a huge concrete slab at her. A huge obstacle quickly reached her. This trick surprised the hunter, but it did not take her by surprise. With quick movements of the sword, she easily cuts the slab into several pieces, opening a path for herself. Yoichi observes the persecution and admires Lanmei's skills. The girl descended to the ground with precision. Where did she go? I no longer feel her presence. The girl looked around confused. The monster escaped, which made Din very angry. She promised that she would definitely find him to avenge himself. Hurt and exhausted, Toji barely moves as he heads home. The current amount of magical energy is 0. The optimal time to reactivate the ability is 12 hours. The voice tells him. Nanace, in her last breath, breaks into her house and meets Miyu. The girl did not immediately realize who had entered the house and was confused. When she realized that it was none other than her brother, she was stunned. The dirty and bloody underwear of the hunter was soaked in the bathtub. The boy tries to wash it, and the memories of that night come to mind. He told his sister that he was not hurt, that it was only an incident at work, that he should not worry, that the blood on his clothes was not his. But the hero lied a little because yesterday he lost a lot of blood. However, thanks to the ability, the wounds have already healed. Most likely, Miyu did not even realize anything. All attempts to wash the clothes were in vain. It will be necessary to discard it. The girl brother and broke into the bathroom demanding an explanation. Toji was worried that Miyu would discover that he had acquired the ability, which could be dangerous for her. Wow, when did you get so muscular that you even have abs? Said the girl surprised, touching her brother. The boy did not even notice the changes in himself. He and his sister concluded that it was a stretch. Maybe we can thank destiny for this, thought the hero while playing with his strong body. If I had not obtained this power, I would never have seen Mia again. He continued, breathing relieved. Hey, open, I know you're there. I heard a knock at the door, screams. Toji remembered that voice. They were the same collectors who came when he was a child. They knocked on the door and somehow managed to find them with Mia. Nana ordered her sister to hide, but he quickly put on the shirt. When opening the door, a man dressed in a hat or white hat was waiting for him behind her. With two guys watching him on each side, he greeted Toji. Mr. Masaki, what do you need? The boy asked casually. Stop being silly, we have to talk about something, let's go. The man did not stay very quiet and went straight to the point. Do you want to invite us to enter, Mr. Masaki? I clearly knew the weak points of Nana's, so the hero had to go with them. It was already night outside. The alley was deserted. A strong blow fell on the protagonist's face. Masaki compares Nana's with his late parents and asks if he wants to go back with them before raising his leg to kick again. The man regrets that he is badly disappearing in this way, neglecting his debts. You don't even have a penny in your pocket? The collector asked, pressing Nana's face. I really don't have a penny, said the man, spitting blood. The man concludes that since there is no other option, they will have to kill him and sell him for organs and take him to Mia. He has a lot of clients with the right preferences, and it will take him about 10 years to pay all his debts. Toji is angry. He was really going to force Mia to work for him. Masaki confirms that he can't do anything else. The debts must be paid. The monsters are destroying people, the world is collapsing, and the only thing that still matters is money, said the man pompously, giving another blow to the young man. He recited synonyms of the word money, and hit Nana's for each one. The series of blows was unbearable, but soon the man got tired of it. Gathering all his will in one fist, the hero stood up as if nothing had happened. In that case, I will show you that not everything is measured in money, Toji replied with hatred. Mr. Masaki does not let himself be intimidated easily, and sends one of his bodyguards to show the boy where the river crabs hibernate. The guard, without thinking twice, attacks Nana's. But his strength and reaction turned out to be slower, and the protagonist grabs the sword by the tip. Thanks to you, my life went downhill. The aggressiveness of the boy was gaining considerable strength. And not only me, Mia also received it, said with hatred and regret, as his aura grew more and more. Now they will pay for this with their lives. Toji's cold gaze inspired fear. Instantly he transformed into his new appearance. The voice informed him that he had not recovered yet, and that he needed to solve the problem as soon as possible. He did not intend to take long. These creatures would not live to see the morning. Child, where did you learn this? Before I could finish speaking, the guard was silenced by the hero's hand. Not a sound, it would be inconvenient if we bothered someone, said the hero, holding a sword in one hand and a guard in the other. The only thing left for the young porter was to ask for mercy, but Nana's had other plans, and with a single movement he scattered the guard on the asphalt, leaving only a blood stain. The second porter was stunned by the hero's cold blood and aimed to attack. Before he could finish activating his ability, he immediately split in two. After dealing with the gorillas, Toji put his eyes on Mr. Masaki. The man was prepared for this result. He took out a weapon. He shot one after another with the hope of saving himself. However, the hero easily deflected the ordinary lead with his swords. Masaki was left without bullets in his gun. The last weapon, prayer and guilt admission, came into play. He admits that he was wrong when he took money from him. When the guy started to get closer, the man began to beg him not to kill him and offered to pay. I have to take care of my family. I have a daughter who is growing up, Masaki said, waiting for mercy. Don't you understand that not everything is solved with money? The hero said coldly, softening his weapon to kill the man. Stop! Masaki shouted. He didn't want to die, but Toji remained firm, and with a single blow he cut the body of the aggressor in two parts. The threat is eliminated. You receive a new title. The voice of skill appeared. He offered the boy to accept or reject the new title. This news interested the tired hero. You have received a new title, beast, concluded the voice. The new title is not particularly pleasant. The probability of critical hit has increased, in addition to the system of skills. The hero pointed out that the titles grant bonuses. He is surprised that he has become a beast after killing those bastards. However, he understands that this title is much more convenient for them. Miyu obediently follows the order of his brother, when suddenly a noise is heard in the apartment. The sister went out to the noise. It turned out to be Toji who had returned. He assured his sister that she was fine and that they could now sleep peacefully. Miyu was very happy that her life would finally improve. She hugged her brother tightly. Toji felt that he was ready to protect his sister at any cost, because she was everything he had left. To prevent Miyu from worrying, he decides to keep his skills secret. The girl looks at the boy puzzled. Now they will have to learn to live again. Because a great power carries a great responsibility. The morning news showed the discovery of the bodies of 3 men, allegedly attacked by a monster. The little sister is afraid that the murder occurred near her house. The hero breathes relieved when he learns that the incident was attributed to the monster. Perhaps the culprit of this incident is a creature nicknamed the Number 1. Since no one has ever come across someone equal in strength, the news adds. Nane swallowed when he saw himself unexpectedly. After all, they had taken him by a monster, and they had even given him a nickname. A study expert informs that this specimen is stronger and more dangerous than the Number 9, who led a herd of monsters that destroyed Australia. And even the Number 13, which has taken over from Antarctica, is not so dangerous. However, the association has already managed to take measures against all of them. Toji points out that he cannot activate the ability in public. It is better for him to sit in silence and keep a low profile. Miyu shared with her brother that she was scared. Nanace assured her that she would not hurt him. After all, she is under her trustworthy protection. The sister calmed down. She trusted and would trust him, because she had never defrauded her. But a tone so hard, not typical of a hero, surprised her. After a pleasant conversation, it was time for Toji to get to work. There is a letter of resignation on the table. The boss carefully examines him. Nanace thanks the boss for everything and leaves. From today on, his new life begins. He was used to surrendering because he did not have talent, but now he can fight. The boy went to the Hunter Association to obtain a license that would give him and his sister a better life. The characteristics of the hero improved, which gave him a shine in life. The reception girl melted when she looked at the tall and handsome man. The boy thought something was wrong with him, so he asked if he had something on his face. The girl felt embarrassed and rushed to send the boy to register at the association. In the magnetic resonance room, the hero was asked to put his skills to the test. It was scanned. The results showed that he had a skill. But it was quite atypical that the others. The doctor explained that he had very little energy, thanks to which the hunters activate his skills. Toji realized that it was most likely that he was supposed to use magic, not energy, during the fights. The girl asked the boy if he could show him his skills. Nanace was not happy with this arrangement, because if he activated the skill, the energy would flow immediately. He tried to explain that that was not the best option. She understood everything because some people prefer not to talk about their skills, and the nature of some skills is very difficult to explain. They asked him to wait until the paperwork was ready. It would not take long, within an hour. The hero thought about what the doctor had said, that the nature of some skills could not be explained. And he wondered if there would be someone with the same skills as him. Suddenly they called the boy by his name. The 3 boys looked at Nanace with dismay. It seems that the hero recognized them. These were the boys who harassed him at school. The boy grabbed Toji and began to mock him, without believing that he could have skills. The hero did not like this, and he told Fujita-senpai that it did not concern him. Fujita was surprised that Nanace had become more bold. But he explained that any hunter needs connections. So weak, but with so much arrogance, that we need to put him in his place. The boys united to give a lesson to the Benedict. Toji noticed that one of them had the ability to measure energy. The boys surrounded Nanace everywhere and the tension grew. I just want to get a license, you can leave me alone. The irritated hero tried to reason with the infractors. So excuse yourself like in the old days, and I said you will not do it again, joked Fujita. And that only made him laugh. Toji looked at the blonde boy angry. The second did not like him at all. He did not like it so much that he attacked the hero, but his anger cooled down quickly. Nanace threw senpai towards his sequence. The voice of skill recommended him to activate the skill, but Toji explained that he did not need to do it, since it was a normal fight. He had not finished with the villain who had tormented him during his school years. He stepped on him. "Well, go ahead, excuse yourself and I will forgive you," said Nanes jokingly, realizing that now the advantage was on his side. However, the boys did not follow the rules and took out their weapons. The hero realized this. From a shot he grabbed the comitiva by the neck. I accelerated as fast as I could and he crushed them against the wall. The boys dropped their weapons. He lifted them very high above him. It was hard for them to breathe. They tried to let go. They were surprised that he was so strong without activating the skill. The only thing Toji could think about was how good it was to kick the backs of those who thought they were invincible and make them feel terrified. "It turns out that you have become very strong," said Fujita, standing up. "You started this," said the hero, throwing the boys almost suffocated to the ground. Senpai only got more angry at such a disgrace. After activating the skill, he decided to teach Toji a lesson. Nanes did not know if it was a trick or if he was really going to use the skill. Fujita was gathering a current of fire energy in a ball. He was actually using his skills. The flames burned and Toji was surprised by the stupidity of his senpai. When he decided to use the skill in the Hunter Association, the flame was bright. If he used the skill, it would be difficult for him, as well as for the entire association. "Attention, the enemy is about to attack you. It is recommended to eliminate the threat immediately," advised the voice. The hero thought about how to knock out the blonde in one blow to stop him. Fujita's friends asked him to stop, because it was very dangerous. "Fire to kill, observe and learn," said the anguished Fujita. "What are you doing?" An irritated and unknown voice was heard throughout the hall. The man scolded the boys for using their skills in a forbidden place, and asked them for a senpai license. The infractors fled with the heels uncovered, just to avoid problems. The man asked the hero if everything was fine and apologized for the incident, but it seemed that this guy was familiar to him. The dispatcher recognized Toji, and Nanes remembered Yoichi. They talked about how the local thug continued to cause problems to everyone, just like he did at school. Yoichi Hariake is a good friend of Nanes since school days. "I'm glad everything turned out this way," Toji concluded. Hariake promised to personally hand over the license to his friend. He's almost ready. Yoichi burns himself with the drink. The hero notices that he is still sensitive to high temperatures, as in the old days. The dispatcher congratulates his friend on becoming a hunter. Toji finds it difficult to share his joy. He says his case is difficult. He himself still doesn't understand how this happened to him. Yoichi explains that he wanted to become a hunter, but instead, he joined the ranks of the service staff. He also asks when the hero received his skills. Nanes responds that it was very recently out of nowhere. Toji wonders if there is another way to acquire skills like using objects. In practice, he would make sure he doesn't remember cases like that. But he points out that if there are artifacts that can grant skills, then the class of this hunter will not be inferior to the legendary. These explanations were enough for the hero. A huge portal in the middle of the field. The hero was in front of him about to enter. Before entering the dungeon, they argued with Yoichi that Toji wanted to go on a solo trip to train, and the dispatcher sent him to the beginner level. As he is now a hunter, it is time to learn more about his skills. A low-ranked dungeon and without spectators would be ideal to start. He entered the dungeon. Inside it was the same as in many other dungeons. "All the conditions to use the bonus have been met," said the voice. Toji asked what the conditions were. The conditions were to obtain at least one title, reach a certain level of skill, that the level of magical energy is higher than 90, and that the user is alone. It seemed that this skill had many interesting characteristics, so he agreed to apply the bonus without a doubt. The bonus was unlocked. The training dungeon, a voice sounded. The hero was surprised that it was not a title or an object. The dungeon turned red. Perhaps its rank increased. Nana heard a loud noise behind him. A huge monster ran towards him. The appearance of the boss at a low level stunned the boy. With huge claws and teeth, the monster was 10 times bigger than the hero. Toji activated the skill and ran towards the monster. He hit him directly in the head. Taking out his sword, he knocked down the monster in one move. Thanks to his beast title, he was able to cut the monster's neck with one blow. Grand Cobalt, a more advanced member of the species. "Do you want to create a Lycanthropus saber?" the system asked. And the hero immediately accepted. Lycanthropus saber 2 stars leadership skill. The boy noticed that with the help of this skill, he could become the leader of the Cobalt. The sword turned out to be heavy, and the system suggested keeping it. This surprised the hero because he did not know such capabilities. When I clicked on the cell, the sword disappeared and appeared in the inventory. When I clicked on the sword in the inventory, it appeared again in the boy's hands. He noticed that the inventory could store 25 swords. A noise distracted him from the inventory study. A horde of monsters went to the noise to take care of the guest. With the help of the new sword, he knocked down half of the monsters in one stroke. Fighting them is more complicated than against the normal ones. You will have to take advantage of the maximum effect of the title. He killed everyone, creating a lot of swords after each death. In his arsenal he now had 5 lycanthropus swords, 3 sticky swords and 2 zombie swords, all of which he kept. The system detected several identical swords, and suggested combining them to make them stronger. The result was a lycanthropus sword with 2 stars, with the flying step skill. The stars determine not only the range of the weapon, but also other key characteristics, rarity, skill, etc. This information provoked Ananas, and he decided to increase all weapons to 2 stars. While he was looking for monsters, he found a huge door, and assumed that the dungeon's boss was hiding behind it. He opened his arsenal. He had many swords. Considering how strong the monsters there were, he would not take care of the boss quickly. However, this was a great opportunity to test new swords in battle. He was ready to face the boss. He walked through the door. A huge gentleman, the boss of this dungeon, was waiting for him on the throne. In the air, the atmosphere of a medieval castle was breathed. The gentleman, awakened by the ancient magic, rose from his throne. The boss of the training dungeon, the sacred gentleman of the white light, has appeared before you. The enemy system appeared. Toji got nervous. He did not expect to see a medieval gentleman. It was clear that this boss was the opposite of the hero in strength. The system noted that by defeating the gentleman, the hero would receive a reward. The white gentleman took out his sword. He immediately attacked Ananas. They faced off in a fierce battle. The hero used the ability of the flying step. He began to run around the white gentleman, choosing the right moment to maneuver. He quickly took a small sword from his inventory and aimed to kill the boss on his neck. But he predicted his attack. He managed to dodge the fatal blow. Visibly nervous, the hero selects a zombie sword from the warehouse. The boss attacked. With a single blow from his sword, the white gentleman inflicts a colossal damage. Toji is thrown against the wall with so much strength. He broke his sword. The hero is surprised by the strength of his opponent. He had never met bosses like that before. The system notifies the hero that the enemy has an anti-demonic effect. His attacks cause more damage to all creatures of darkness. Ananas discovers that he is a creature of darkness, which is why he receives so much damage from the boss. But since the white gentleman has an ability, it means that he is one of the only monsters. If so, now he will not be content and will lower all his swords on the boss. The first to enter battle was the sticky sword, with the ability to stretch. With a single blow, the boss cuts Toji's sword. While the gentleman was distracted, other swords were also used. The enemy was prepared for such clowns. All the hero's attempts were in vain. The swords bounced in his armor, and the boy could not detect any other weak point in the gentleman. Toji decides to point to the enemy's neck to kill him, but no matter how much he tried, all his attacks were repelled one after another. The guy decides to try to find his unprotected areas to hit them and weaken the enemy. The voice tells him to use his leadership ability, and sends a group of kobolds against the gentleman. Having jumped far from the boss, the guy began to cast a spell. He took the saber from the lycanthropus, which he had received from the first boss of this dungeon. The hero uses the leadership ability, a group of kobolds. Intoxicated by the ability, he surrounds it. He ordered the new pets to attack the boss. The bitter but loyal animals obediently ran to comply with the order. They clung to the white knight, clinging to his neck and legs. Using a flying step, Nana flew towards the enemy. The enemy was not willing to surrender so quickly. He killed all the kobolds. However, he did not realize that the hero was coming closely from behind. The boss's neck was exposed. The guy took the ogre's knife. He used a demonic improvement. Nobody thought about surrendering. They entered the fight. His swords crossed. His forces were equal. The knight's magic began to spread to the hero's sword. The system screamed. The anti-demon effect spread to Ogre's sword. He began to crumble quickly, but Toji did not care. He is willing to sacrifice his sword just to cut the knight's head. The blows became increasingly intense and the sword could not withstand so much pressure. In the end, both swords broke into small pieces, but the hero still had swords in reserve. But he quickly invoked the lycanthropist sword, and with all his strength he hit the boss. The enemy's head was separated from the body. Due to the effect of the beast title, the enemy is defeated. Nanase immediately began to create a defeated enemy sword. The result was a white light sword with 4 stars and the ability of exorcism. The chest over the boss's victory did not take long to appear. The dungeon has been cleaned. A bonification has been received. The magic energy has been restored and healing has been provided. The hero also now has access to a new title, which he has accepted. New title Speedwalker. The speed of the user has increased several times. It is most likely that the titles change depending on the style of the fight. It is time to discover what reward awaits you. An improvement material, the Ascension Stone, can raise any sword 2 levels at once. Considering that rare swords are not easy to get, this was a very valuable object. After cleaning the entire dungeon and killing all the bosses, the exit opened. Nanase was satisfied with his results. It was time to finish training. The hero returned to the association to share the results with his friend. The speedwalker did not expect to see Toji so fast. The boy happily smiled as if he had never left. Yoichi tells the boy that low-level dungeons usually take days to complete. And the hero himself was surprised to have completed them so quickly, so he has a reward. A friend went to find out how much the hunter would receive for cleaning the dungeon. To his surprise, the dungeon disappeared and he cleared it in a few hours. The money has been sent. The amount surprised Nanase. A reward of up to 40,000 for a low-level dungeon was worthy. If he had not gone there alone, he would have had to share with others. But the hunter's ardor did not fade. He planned to clean another dungeon. Yoichi felt very discouraged by this statement. Toji began to explain to his friend that he had a special ability, but he stopped in time. If the dungeon had not mutated, his magical energy would not have been restored, but it is unlikely that this information will be useful to him. Instead, he proved that he was in good physical shape and asked to see the list of dungeons available. The operator warned the boy not to make too much effort, but provided him with a list of dungeons. Nanase felt attracted to something. An unusual plant grew in the dungeon. Yoichi told me that the healing herbs grow near the entrance to the dungeon, and that cleaning them also gives good rewards. If you are lucky, you will be rewarded with a high-level elixir, a universal cure for all diseases. This discovery amazes the boy. Remember how his sister recently felt sick. The disease affects her a lot, because she does not want to be a burden for her brother. Due to the effects of the magical energy, Miyu's condition has worsened a lot, so you barely attended school. If I could get this elixir, I could cure her. A friend says it is a very rare discovery. You can buy one just like that in the market for at least 100 million, but it will be difficult to find it yourself. The desire to help his sister was stronger than anything else. He declared that he wanted to go there right now. Yoichi explains to the boy that the dungeon will open tomorrow, and that he will not be able to enter there alone. This dungeon is located in the center of the city and has a very high rank. To reduce the risk of emergencies, hunters do not go alone. According to security rules, only 5 people are allowed to enter groups. This news ruined Nanase's plans a bit, since he did not have any known hunter for his squad. The dispatcher made the boy happy by assuring him that he would find a temporary unit for tomorrow. Hunters often gather squads for temporary incursions. He will contact someone. This news inspired the hero. Yoichi advised the boy to go home for now and buy some healing potions in his special store on the way. When reflecting on how surprised his friend was by his quick return from the dungeon, he noticed that he had never seen it before. A huge dungeon was rising in the middle of the road, surrounded by ambulances, operators and other hunters. Yoichi said he would meet my companions there, the boy thought, looking around. A multitude of hunters surrounded the dungeon. The interest in it was high. A voice came from behind, heading to Nanase. Several men greeted the boy. The long and blonde-haired boy introduced himself as Kabinok. His incursion companion thanked Toshi for joining, since they only lacked one member. Cabanok asked if the hero had brought any weapons with him. He said, on the contrary, it would be difficult to enter the dungeon without one. He showed the knife he had bought in a specialized store. The blonde-haired boy was surprised that the guy preferred melee combat. He could have brought a gun. The gun is too expensive and it is necessary to take a 2-week course to learn how to use it. Nanase assured him that his own strength was enough and the blonde-haired boy did not argue with his comrade. All hunters were notified that the doors were about to open. Cabanok suggested approaching to be among the first to enter. Some of the monster hunters were already in the dungeon, completely prepared. The monsters of this dungeon came running in front of the noise. Among screams, the hunters launched into battle. While everyone was busy clearing the path, Nanase's incursion stayed behind, watching. He pointed out that the hunters' resources, such as bullets and energy, were not infinite. But they did not stay in ceremonies with the monsters. Losing his control, the goblin stealthily approached the guy without being noticed. They knocked him down and began to hit him. Toji quickly prepared and holding the sword in his hand, he launched into battle. He quickly cut the heads of the elves. He liked his knife. However, without his skills, the fight became much more difficult. He decided that when the limit of his abilities reached its maximum, he would use his power discreetly of all. Cabanok praised the hero's ability with weapons. Nanase joked, saying that now he could definitely be called a monster hunter. The company advanced through the dungeon laughing. What imprudence! These idiots have no idea what awaits them ahead. Let's make them happy while they can. The blonde thought to himself, smiling maliciously. Especially you, Toji. Nanase, continued Kawano in his head, clearly admiring his plan. The hunter's highlight was increasingly penetrated into the depths of the dungeon. The hero thought of his sister and that he had to get this elixir at any cost. He ran forward, shouting at the team that had to hurry so that the monsters would not reach them so well. Cabanok stopped the hero. He warns the boy that if they hurry, they will waste all their strength, just like those who ran ahead. And for the final battle they will need strength. Nanase's plan did not work. He wanted to run forward to kill as many monsters as possible and turn them into swords. But it was better not to show his skills for now. Toji agrees with the blonde, which cannot avoid pleasing the latter, because everything goes according to his plan, and he will easily fulfill the order of his superiors. A huge mansion, whose entrance is guarded by 2 security guards. Our comrade fell into his own trap, asked the man holding a glass in his hands. Cabanok responds, shouting angrily. He was lying on the cobalt, the blonde was kneeling in front of him. He spoke about the massacre of Masaki and his subordinates. The guy is sure that the murderer is Toji Nanase. The man tells Cabanok that he has the opportunity to reach the top and become one of the 4 seals. But he must understand the honor he is supposed to have. The blonde understands that he must demonstrate that he is worthy of this. The man orders him to restore his reputation and make Toji pay in full for dishonoring them. And not to think about it, he began. But before the boss could finish, the monster muttered loudly. This behavior infuriated the man. He grabbed the cobalt by the snout, and with one hand he hit his head. Disappointing, the man ended up angry, turning towards the blonde. Cabanok knows that the orders of this man must be followed. On the contrary, death awaits him for all the 6 seals. The authority of this man is unquestionable. He is venerated as a god. The blonde man accidentally entered the association to collect information about Nanase, and he came to the conclusion that it would be better to kill him in the dungeon. And this raid came at the perfect moment. The boy carefully observes the hero. Meanwhile, Toji was crushing enemies to the right and left. Even without his ability, he had enough strength and reaction to deal with the monsters. Kawano points out that the hero is quite strong, since he managed to eliminate the Masaki's bodyguards, who were also hunters. To judge by the state they were cut with a sword, everything coincides, the blonde man summed up. But something was not right here. A hunter with only physical improvements was really capable of such a thing? Kawano carefully reviewed all the details of the incident in his head. The assault comrades asked the blonde man if they should act according to the instructions, but he replied that everything was still in place and that they should get rid of Nanase. The guy named the hero. They headed towards the door of the dungeon's boss. The team met and the door led to the boss of the level. They came here before everyone else. If the others come, they will have to share with them. They decided to enter as soon as possible. The whole squad met in the room with the boss. The huge room received the guests silently. Little by little, a roar spread throughout the place. The noise meant that the boss had arrived. Everyone was ready. Only the hero and the blonde man remained calm. You can't stay so calm for much longer, Toji Kawano laughed. Finally, the boss of the dungeon appeared in front of them. The size of the monster was terrifying. The gargoyle opened its burning eyes. When welcoming its guests, it screamed loudly throughout the room. The hero's system notified him that he was facing a unique monster, Warhammer Gargoyle, and added that he should be careful with an unknown class ability. Nanace was impressed by the size of the monster. The blonde man plans to seal the room and wait until the hero's powers run out completely, and then finish him off. Since Toji is not alone here, he cannot use his abilities, so he will have to use a knife. The victory over the monster depends solely on teamwork. Kawano ordered the shields to be lifted. The boy uses the reflex ability.
The gargoyle attacks him.
While the boy was distracting the monster with a shield, the squad opened fire against the boss. But the boys quickly realized that bullets are not a problem for her. The blonde man uses his ice sword ability. He froze the monster's legs, stopping him. Toji immediately rushed to attack the boss. It would have been stupid to hit him in the head. The hero was trying to determine the weak point of the monster. The gargoyle did not stay silent and was about to attack with a fireball. The boy realized this, but he lacked the reaction to dodge it. The Ava Zaire title was received. The system was activated in time. He barely managed to dodge it, but he managed to save himself in the last moment. Having recovered the breath, the hero thanks his title. Now he understands that he can obtain it without using skills. Meanwhile, the gargoyle had already melted the ice that was tying her. Kabinok pointed out that he did it with the heat of his body. The monster flew up. In this way, it is avoided to be frozen again in the ice. Toji shouted that they should lower it now and activated the instant adaptation ability. The hero climbed skillfully over the wall. In an instant he was already on the top and trying to knock down the monster. The team watched this with surprise. The hero remembered that he could not face the situation alone, and that he needed help. The blonde used the ability immediately. He ordered the rest to shoot the monster. The bullets did not penetrate his skin yet, but they were a good distraction. The monster maneuvered between the blades and began to descend. Toji managed to knock down the gargoyle. The hero attacked at the right moment. He used the ability of inhuman cruelty and hit. He managed to cut the monster's hand. With the other hand, the gargoyle softened his hammer. The Warhammer Gargoyle used his ability. The system notified him and the hero was tense. The monster activated the Queen of Destruction ability and attacked the guy with all his strength. At the last moment, the hero managed to jump back. The destructiveness of his power felt throughout the castle. Toji noticed that it was better not to be trapped in the epicenter of that thing. Clearly you would not survive. The instant adaptation was consuming too much energy. The system recommended stopping it, but then it would be vulnerable. Nanace asked Kawano to use the ice sword ability again, to which he replied that it was a useless task. Toji asked him to trust him and the blonde man agreed. The boys gathered and fired another discharge at the gargoyle. The bullets bounced in his armor. However, she turned the ice blades with her tail. Nanace noticed the vulnerability of the monster. He turned and ran to attack. The blade flew towards the front of the monster. After receiving a blow in the forehead, the hero understood everything. The last time, the gargoyle turned the sword with its tail, which means that its weak point is the ice. After summarizing it and armed with a pair of swords, the guy attacked. Finally, he managed to cross the armor of the monster. Immediately, he hit the final blow to the heart of the enemy. The gargoyle waited for such an attack. Because of the heat of the monster, the sword began to melt. The blonde man shouted that a single sword would not be enough. The monster softened his hammer. Toji assured that he could handle it. His magical powers were at their best. He will be able to pierce the heart of the gargoyle before melting the ice. The hero sunk the sword directly into the heart of the monster. The gargoyle no longer had the strength to resist. The hero knocked down the monster. The squadron could not believe that the boss had been murdered. Nanace defeated the Warhammer Gargoyle. The door to the chest opened. It contained the reward for the victory. Kabinok congratulates the hero for his victory. Toji thanks the entire team. because without them he would not have been able to fix it. The blonde man is surprised by his modesty. Everyone agreed to give the treasure chest to whoever worked harder, and they would divide the money. The hero was quite satisfied with this result, and he immediately approached the chest. Cabanag smiled with a malicious smile. The blonde man and his squad pointed their weapons at Nanes. Nanes dodged it, escaping death. The bullet only brushed his cheek. Cabanag was surprised. He did not expect such a quick reaction. The anger invaded him. If the system had not warned the hero a second before the shot, he would not be alive. How should this be understood, Kawano? Toji was perplexed. It is not obvious, the blonde man began. You will die here and now. Cabanag concluded, while the whole squad pointed their weapons at the hero. A rain of shots was directed at Nanes. The boy dodged them with the speed of lightning. The situation was difficult. The boy was outraged by the actions of his friend, but the problem had to be solved. He applied the ability of instant adaptation. Before he could take a step, the bullet passed next to the boy's leg. He was surprised that this was possible. He realized that they had been anticipating each of his movements. The blonde man praised the hero for his unusual physical abilities. However, he will not be able to escape them, because they will have caught their prey faster. The words of his comrade made Nanes tense. It seemed that escaping would not be so easy for him. A new discharge illuminated the dungeon again. The hero was surrounded. Thanks to his speed, he managed to find refuge in front of a defeated gargoyle. He still did not understand what caused the blonde man's behavior, because even if he killed him, he would still have to answer for what he did. You still haven't understood. The comrade smiled. The death of a hunter during a raid is something very common. It won't even be suspicious. He explained. The hero realized that the team had planned to face him from the beginning. The blonde man continued explaining that after defeating the boss, the dungeon would collapse. No one would find the body, and all he had to do was write a report about it. The hero was confused, but he listened carefully. The plan was well thought out by his companions. Nanes did not calm down. He asked Kawano what he had done to annoy him, and that he wanted to kill him so fiercely. After reloading his gun, the blonde man slowly approached the hero. He told Toji that he was grudging him the day he killed Masaki. If you had obeyed, you would have lived in peace. But you have crossed the path of the Six Fangs and you will pay for it. The comrade concluded. Now everything was clear for the hero. They were friends of that jacket. He absorbed the magical energy of the dungeon, thus restoring his strength. The amount of magical energy was approximately 30%. The system recommends that the enemies be eliminated immediately. Kawano's words changed a lot. Toji was surrounded. There was no place to run. The blonde man was glad to be able to please his boss by killing Nanes. The weapons of the team were a meter away from the hero. He was full of rage. Having left aside all emotions, he was charged with energy. With a very fast movement, he stabbed the knife under the ribs of one of his companions. The blonde man only managed to turn around, clearly surprised by Nane's speed. Now the hero could breathe relieved. For all this time he had not been able to activate his ability. The guy was afraid of hurting innocent people. If they just wanted to kill him, he would not blame them. However, they were just like Masaki, people who lost their human dignity and ruined their lives. And he does not regret having killed him. The red-haired boy was outraged by Nane's insolence. Holding a machine gun in his hands, he began to shoot the entire loader directly at the hero. Toji's speed was greater than that of the lead, and he could easily dodge the bullets as he approached his comrade. Red did not understand how this was possible. It was an inhuman speed that the hero had not demonstrated during the fight with the gargoyle. Nanes explained that he gave it all during the fight, but now he has much more motivation, which gives him incredible strength. The comrade used the ability to reflect the damage that the hero would inflict. However, Toji was behind him and hit him on the ribs. The blonde observed his fight, and he was upset because his teammate could not defeat Nanes. It is a fictitious ability, not a skill. It can only be used to repel a frontal attack, the hero concluded. The red-haired boy fell dead. The shield did not help him at all. A blow from behind was fatal. The second comrade did not appreciate the fanfare of the hero, and he summoned a lot of balls. And he used his magnetic field ability, shooting balls like bullets. The balls flew towards Nanes, and he had no problem dodging them. The comrade did not expect to hit the hero, but it was worth trying. The balls returned to the owner surrounding him. Thanks to his ability, a ball dome was made that turned quickly. Unlike the red-haired boy, he did not have blind spots, and it did not matter how fast the hero moved. He was completely safe. Toshi agreed. It was not so easy to reach his comrade. Then he decided to take the strongest. He took the hammer from the gargoyle and attacked the guy in the dome. The hunter did not expect such a movement from the hero. When he realized how desperate the situation was, he asked Nanes to stop. But Toshi was ruthless. With a blow he left the guy with nothing more than a wet spot. The six finished and they and the blonde were left alone. The hero said it was too late to ask for mercy, but if he kindly asked for it he could get it. This statement made Cabanog laugh. He was never surprised by the boy's naivety. Showing a four-tailed tattoo, he explained that killing the team would not make him tremble in fear. Nanes understood who he was dealing with. The blonde said that not only the hero knows how to hide his true power. A huge ice crystal formed on them. Their eyes crossed. Now there would be a decisive battle. Only one of them would emerge from the dungeon. Cabanog used the ability of the ice field. A huge crystal flew directly towards the hero. He jumped high in the air, dodging the attack. His reaction faster than that of the blonde, the comrade, drunk with his superiority. He smiled while Toshi was in the air. The magic of ice spread throughout the dungeon floor, making it impossible to land. Nanes did not expect such a trick. He landed and retreated before the ice bayonets could touch him. He gathered all the energy in his legs and jumped. He managed to impulse and fly high. Meanwhile, the ground was already completely covered with ice blades. He stuck his knife on the wall under the ceiling. So you can create more than just spears. He reasoned, going back to Cabanog. The blonde laughed at the boy, suggesting that he had woken up yesterday, since he had never met such a clumsy person. Cabanog explained that skills have many uses, and that hunters are the next evolution. By exploring their skills in depth, they can expand the range of their application, and as he has learned to create ice swords, he can control the element in the same. The blonde cracked his fingers to demonstrate his power. In that very second, huge frozen hands materialized and flew towards Nanes. They forced him to release the knife and escape. Some hands tried to grab him, but the hero defended himself as best he could. While he was fighting, the blonde created hundreds of ice swords. The swords flew directly towards Nanes. Without any ground under his feet, it would be difficult to dodge them all. Cabanog appreciated the skills of the guy. If they had not ordered him to kill him, he would have gladly accepted it in his squad. The blonde's speeches infuriated the hero, and his patience was running out. Toshi began his transformation. His comrade was not prepared for such a development of events. A huge explosion spread throughout the dungeon. The fragments of ice on the ground, scented with blades. They became gnaws after the explosion. Cabanog did not understand what happened, and where did those explosions come from? A dark aura filled his mind. He was stunned. Anxiety took over his body. He did not understand what kind of monster was in front of him. The aura was more powerful than that of the bosses of the dungeon. His hands began to tremble involuntarily. Meanwhile, Toshi had already completed his transformation, and he appeared before the blonde. The hero was dressed in a full uniform, prepared and ready for battle. Cabanog was in shock. The monster called number 101, the one that was talked about in the news, was in front of him. Nanes was upset about having to use his ability. He did not want anyone to see that way, but there was no other way. He repeated the words of the blonde man. He said that the death of a hunter during an incursion was something common, which meant that his disappearance would not seem strange to anyone. The amazed comrade could not believe that it was Toshi Nanes who was in front of him. He put all the facts together in his head. That Masaki was murdered just when the number 101 appeared, but he could not imagine that he would become a hero. Confused, Kawano could not determine if Toshi was a man or a monster. The hero smiled. He made the decision about his belonging to the blonde, liberating his energy. The aura quickly reached his comrade. The power of Nanes was poisoning his entire body, and Kawano's abilities were not enough to neutralize him. The hero thanks the blonde for the valuable advice about the study of his abilities and the expansion of his range of applications. He was curious about the effect that would occur if he concentrated his magical energy. The blonde realized that he had only worsened his fate by giving the hero advice. He should have rejected him in silence. Toshi was learning his new skills. He learned to use his energy to put people on their knees. The blonde felt offended. It would never allow anyone to put him on his knees. With the last thing left on him, he created a huge ice crystal. The energy was weak, but he managed to maintain his magic. He shouted that he belonged to the Four Fangs, that his name was his pride. The hero was surprised that he could still move. Despite the influence of his aura, Nanase was not impressed by this performance. And with a single blow he destroyed the ice crystal. The blonde was wasting his energy in vain. The jokes were over. The hero was Kawano, giving him a powerful kick in the stomach, from where the blonde flew back several meters. He understood that all his attempts to attack would be repressed. It was useless. After building an ice wall between them, he decides to retire. Toshi had fun with the blonde's attempts to escape from him. After hitting with his sword, he was not able to cross the wall. It was quite thick. Meanwhile, Kawano strategically retreated to inform his boss of what he had seen. The world is ruled by cruelty and force. And if there is someone stronger than you, you will be like a fool. The hero decided to try to create a sword from a murdered gargoyle. He created the 4-star Warhammer sword. The hero called the blonde. He says that they themselves woke the beast in him. If his group had not given him a happy life, the monster would have slept peacefully. Nanase used the ability of the King of Destruction, using a hammer. He destroyed the thick wall of Kawano. Approaching the blonde, the hero reflected on how many lives he had destroyed, and he took his equipment. By killing him, maybe there will be fewer innocent victims. What irony! The hunter himself became the prey. The hero concluded, blowing his hammer. The boy who stopped. A blow in the head was crushed, leaving behind only a wet stain. The enemy has been defeated. The system offers to accept a new title. When accepting, Nanase received the Chopper title, with the bonus of increasing his statistics in combat. 1 against 1. Once you have eliminated all enemies, you can concentrate on your goal of saving your sister. A huge chest was waiting for its liberator. The hero really hopes that what he needs, an elixir of the highest level, he is waiting inside. After all, only with his help will he be able to heal Mia. Toji looks at the content of the chest in advance. Inside he was waiting for a deserved reward. It seems that this is not what he expected to see. The reward was a whip, whose content bothered the guy. But he did not mind, and he decided that he would look for the elixir in a place where medicinal herbs grew. However, he had no idea what to do with the whip. The system told the man that this is a subjugation weapon that allows you to subjugate weaker opponents at will. The reward turned out to be very valuable and useful for future cleaning. After receiving the gift, the dungeon began to collapse. Toji was about to leave, but before doing so, he looked around the battlefield. Goodbye, Cabana. Nothing personal, but he is still a bastard. The hero of his former comrades said goodbye, and he ran to look for an exit. Near the entrance, a multitude of hunters discussed the details of the cleaning of his dungeon. The two boys were discussing how difficult the raid had been, and they wondered who had managed to kill the boss. Nana managed to transform into a human and leave the dungeon. He looked at the hunters. There were some who had received serious injuries. The boy from the association ordered everyone who had arrived to return, since the dungeon was closing, and soon the monsters will come out. The monsters who will take care of everything. Duendes and zombies came out crawling with the hope of finding salvation. The hunters fought skillfully against the monsters. Two cowards snuck out of the sight of the hunters and ran towards the lice. Dead from fear fell to the ground and Toji sighed tired. He grabbed a sword that one of the hunters had left behind. In one blow he knocked down all the cowards, without allowing them to have a feast with their colleagues, as if nothing had happened. After the massacre he threw the sword back. The monsters had disappeared. The dungeon was empty. Little by little the entrance began to narrow down, until it completely disappeared. The dispatcher announced the closing of the doors. The perimeter was agreed, and all participants in the raid, they were able to collect their prizes in the main office of the Hunter Association. There was a whole queue to receive the reward. The hero was surprised that all participants in the raid received a reward for cleaning the dungeon. Yoichi appeared and explained to the boy that if they only rewarded those who defeated the chief, his association would be flooded with complaints. In addition, everyone participated in the fight against the monsters. Continuing the conversation in the office of his friend, the dispatcher was glad that the hero had escaped from the dungeon alive and unharmed. He asked the boy how his first raid had gone in life. Nanes remembered the sad events that happened in the dungeon. But Yorchi said it was difficult for him, because he left the squadron from the beginning. The dispatcher was worried about his fate. Toji assured them that most likely they were fine. They were pretty strong guys. Yorchi told Kawano that he was a hunter brank, an experienced fighter. So they assigned Toji to him. Nanes was surprised that he was so strong that he could defeat the experienced hunter. The dispatcher asked his friend if he had any questions or suggestions for him. The only question that interested the hero, it was if there would be an empty apartment nearby. In some well-guarded building. Since he planned to move, Yorchi did not expect to hear such a question from his friend. After a long day of work, Toji returned home where Miyu was waiting for him. At dinner, Nane suggested that his sister move to a safe place so that the bad guys would not find them again. Miyu agreed with his brother. According to Kawano, all his gang knows that he killed Masaki. If they attack, he can fight them, but Miyu does not. Yorchi helped him find a wonderful room in the dormitory of the members of the association, but to cover all expenses, Toji will have to clean even more. During the raids, you cannot kill many monsters or create swords. He decided to enter the dungeon alone to get a great reward. There were goblin squadrons in the dungeon, however, it is not difficult for the hero to finish them in one blow. After killing another group of goblins, he noticed that there was a much larger enemy later. The boss of the dungeon appeared in front of him. He threw his garrote at the hero. Toji dodged the attack. He got up on top of the monster to attack him. In one blow he took his head off the monster. The enemy was defeated and the dungeon was cleared. A huge snake appeared in front of the hero. Without thinking twice, the guy took care of her in one blow. And the enemy was defeated. One by one, Nana cleared the dungeons. Killing their bosses over and over again, they began to write articles about Toji. The speed of his cleaning was amazing, and he was in the mouth of all hunters. Another boss was defeated. This was already the 5th dungeon in a week. The hero became stronger with each boss defeated. The news of a newcomer who was cleaning dungeons at supersonic speeds. It was causing a stir among the hunters. The two boys were discussing this news, and they wondered who it could be. Yorchi passed by and listened to his conversation. He reflected on the fact that the strength of his friend was growing, and the weak dungeons no longer caused him difficulties, and he decided to offer the hero to move on to the next stage. Nana went to the dispatcher to carry out another raid. The friend looked at the hero, considering his proposal. Yorchi greeted the boy and offered to discuss something with him. He asked Toji if he wanted to take the advanced training exam. The dispatcher's proposal disconcerted the hero. He did not know they had something like that. All hunters have their own ranks, like the dungeons. The higher your rank, the greater the reward. And you can also access more advanced dungeons. The hero did not show much interest in the offer, since the size of the reward did not particularly concern him. But he did ask when the exam would be. The friend proudly said that for him at any time. What inspired Nana was born, and he agreed to start working with him immediately. A moment later, they were already at the entrance of the dungeon, to which the D rank had been granted 2 days ago. He was chosen to carry out the exam, but the dispatcher emphasized that the boy, he did not have to approve it completely at once. Yorchi will be the examiner, so Toji must demonstrate his valiance in action, so that the dispatcher can evaluate his skills and decide if he is worthy of the D rank. The hero was surprised by the courage of his friend. He never thought he would dare to go down to the dungeon. However, there was a magical energy in the dungeon that could be perceived by the hunters, but not by the common people. Nanes was worried about his friend. Yorchi assured the awakening that with the help of the protective suit developed by the association, he was not afraid of the magical energy. When using it, he will be able to survive in the dungeon for approximately 2 hours, without his health suffering any damage. But what about his safety? It will be provided by C-rank guys. The dispatcher had everything under control. The guys met. The guy with the shotgun was happy to meet the newcomer, especially because he was in everyone's mouth, and he could not wait to discover what skills the hero had. Yorchi encouraged the boy by saying that he could handle everyone if he relaxed, and he did not make too many mistakes. The squad entered the dungeon and began the exam. The interior was covered with crystals. The previous dungeon was of a higher rank than this, But you must be careful. Suddenly a monster appeared in front of them. Nanase quickly oriented and activated the title of Savage and Murderer. In one blow he cut the monster in half. The team was pleasantly surprised by the hero's reaction. And although Toji could not use his skills, his titles helped him a lot. Other monsters came running to greet the guests. Yoichi was worried that his friend could not handle 3 reptiles at once. The hero sat in combat position. He trusted his strength because he thought about every step. Having recovered, he went to the offensive. In an instant, only pieces of the monsters remained. The reptile archer pointed to the guy, but Nanase was also prepared for this attack. With a skillful movement he threw his knife. The monster was stunned immediately before being able to attack. A clear blow between the eyes of the monster instantly killed him. The hero took the reptile's corpse knife. He didn't even sweat, on the contrary he simply warmed up. The team was a little shocked by what they saw. They discussed how the hero dealt with several reptiles and basilisk of a single blow, and if they were combined, his strength would be like that of a E-rank bat. And Nanase managed to kill them easily and without the help of anyone. Yoichi thought that, during the last 2 weeks, he had been more than once surprised by the speed of his friend when cleaning mazes. And he kept asking himself what skill helped him achieve success. And he came to the conclusion that the hero did not have any special skill. However, his strength and speed were unimaginable. Nanase had come so far using a simple knife. Another monster was defeated. Toshi himself did not expect how easy it would be to clean this Mazmora. The boys never stopped being surprised by the speed and strength of the hero. Yoichi decided to ask his friend how he manages to deal with monsters so easily. Suddenly the Mazmora began to collapse. The sensations were comparable to those of an earthquake, something unusual in that place. The blue crystals changed to purple. Not even the operator could understand what was happening. The system alerted the hero about the imminent appearance of a new Mazmora in this place. The concentration of magical energy is increasing rapidly, which will cause a change in the environment. Something was opening up from the basement. In the place that was previously a barren land, huge columns began to emerge. An impressive statue of a reptile appeared in the middle of the Mazmora. The concentration of magical energy was too high. Anticipating, Toshi focused his attention on the squadron. The hunters were not affected by the concentration of magical energy, but Yoichi was a common person. Unfortunately, he could not face so much force and lost his knowledge. Nanase hurried to help his friend. With his last forces, Yoichi explains to the hero that he must leave immediately, since a superposition of Mazmoras has occurred. It is a rare phenomenon, as only 9 cases have been registered worldwide, and the event was an anomaly with unknown causes. The dispatcher's suit will not withstand such a powerful magical effect. It is necessary to get Yoichi out. The defenders shouted that the exam was cancelled, since Yoichi's life was a priority. Magical monsters began to emerge from the basement. The hunter began to shoot them. He made many holes in the monsters, but it did not work. They were easily attracted. They were unusual monsters. You cannot eliminate them with firearms, you need to use skills. The guy uses the ability of the swamp. Snake-shaped monsters were summoned from the basement. They attacked the monsters and immobilized them. The magical beasts were under the control of the ability of the swamp. The boys were happy to have managed to stop them. Unexpectedly, another group of magical creatures emerged from behind the columns. They were more numerous than before, and they quickly approached the highlight. The lizard suddenly appeared on the hero. Toji called the boys to ask for help. A huge corpse fell on their heads and almost everyone managed to jump back. The creature grabbed 2 hunters and began to swallow them. Nana had no time to do anything in this situation. He only called them, but it was too late. The monster had swallowed them almost completely. All they could do was scream hysterically. The monster grew bigger, fed by the hunter's energy. This creepy smile foreshadowed great problems for the hero. Toji realized that these were the spirits of the monsters he had destroyed while cleaning the swamp. The system began to analyze the swamp, concluding that they were in a reptile grave. The number of monsters grows exponentially until all the magical energy of the swamp is exhausted, and the hero is advised to clean it or withdraw. He really had no choice since the exit was blocked by monsters. Having transformed, he hoped that Yoichi could resist. During the fight with Cabanach, he learned to control the release of magical energy, which will help him not to hurt his friend. A huge shadow monster attacked the hero. Toji grabbed the monster. A huge coagulant of magical energy was right above him. Anger carried against the awakening. At that very moment he cut the monster's head, of which nothing was left afterwards. The other monsters were surprised by the death of their relative. As he has to fight against the undead, the hero wants to try something. From his storage he takes out a sword of white light, received from the White Knight. He got into combat position and was ready to attack. The monsters went into the offensive. At that very moment, Nana activated the ability of the sword incineration. He moved his sword around the perimeter, a ray of light incinerating every monster that dared to approach. There was no trace of the magical energy of the undead. The hero managed to exterminate most of the monsters. The noise distracted the boy. The statue of the reptile began to crumble. She was imbued with the magical energy of the dungeon, and took the form of a skeleton. A huge lizard with a sword in his hand appeared in front of the hunter. Before him was the owner of the crypt. These traps no longer impressed the hero. The system has detected a sudden increase in magical energy. The boss threw a powerful explosion of energy. The guy barely managed to dodge it, but having identified the root of all evil, the hero was ready to clean the dungeon. As there was little time, he decided to finish the creature with a single blow. Toji unleashed a burst of blows on the reptile's leg. The creature's bone became gnawing, but immediately managed to grow back together. The hero was surprised that it would not work. The monster was immobilized. The boss hit the hero with a powerful blow. The impact caused an earthquake throughout the dungeon. The columns began to collapse. The guy was upset for not being able to defeat the monster in one blow. The system made a report about the enemy. The king of the fallen reptiles was feeding on the magical energy of the dungeon. The boss grabbed one of the fallen columns. Balancing, he chose an objective to launch. The column flew towards Yoichi. Nanace did not expect such a trick from the monster. The column hit exactly the white one. Toji managed to avoid the death of his friend in time. The hero realized that the monster had identified his weakness, and it was not so simple. The man asked the system to evaluate the condition of his friend and how to save him. The system recommended that Yoichi be removed from the dungeon as soon as possible to stop the process of infection. The hero only had 10 minutes free, but that was enough. Gathering his forces, Nanace was ready to destroy the monster. The motivation to save his friend charged him with energy. The hunter immediately went to the offensive. He designed his attacks to tackle the problem efficiently and quickly. In one blow, the monster's arm and weapon were cut. With all his strength, Toji aimed to seize the decisive blow. He pushed the sword of light towards the monster where his heart should be, and he used the ability of glow. A burst of light illuminated the dungeon. The monster screamed in pain. Nanace climbed up to his sword that stood out from the boss. He flew high over the enemy. The hero invoked the sword to the hammer of war. The monster understood that fate was waiting for him. He decided to attack the unconscious Yoichi with his tail. Toji used the King of Resolution skill, and the title of Swallower was activated. A devastating blow from the hammer fell on the head of the reptile. The boss was completely covered in cracks. The body and head were successfully crushed into small pieces. The monster's tail never managed to reach Yoichi. The life of the dispatcher was not in danger except for the magical energy. The king of fallen reptilians is defeated. The concentration of magical energy returns to normal. Having finished with the boss, Nanace ran immediately towards his friend. The system suggested creating a sword from the defeated boss. The hero said to create it and hide it immediately in the inventory. After placing the dispatcher on his shoulders, he ran immediately towards the exit.
Yoichi managed to wake up when the magic began to stabilize.
He could barely see his savior. The dispatcher began to look closer. He clearly saw his friend Toji, but his forces were quickly abandoning him, until he finally lost consciousness again. The exit was very close. Nanace ran as fast as he could to help his friend. The remains of the Chutish blocked his path. The hero was angry. He had no time at all. As if they were annoying flies, the hunter was in charge of finishing them off with a single blow. The monsters only became informant. But this was enough for the hero to continue on his way. He defeated the boss, but he could not clean the entire dungeon. He finally found a way out of the dungeon. To avoid being recognized, he deactivated his ability before leaving. They ran healthy and safe through the exit. He was already waiting for an entire association with other dispatchers, hunters and rescue services. Toji was glad that they were sent people to help. The hero immediately handed over his friend to the rescue team, explaining that the concentration of magical energy in the dungeon had suddenly increased. Without asking unnecessary questions, the ambulance immediately left with the victim. Finally, Nanace was able to breathe relieved. A familiar voice behind the boy took him by surprise. When he turned around, he recognized the legendary hunter May. She asked the boy what happened in the dungeon. Toji was glad that she did not remember him after his first encounter. While explaining that there was a superposition in the dungeon, information about the imposition made the hunter think, because the level of the dungeon was low. He also asked where the other hunters who accompanied Yoichi were. Toji told sadly how they were attacked by monsters and the children died. This news alarmed May. Despite the sad circumstances, he advised the boy to thank destiny for his survival. The time to talk was over. The monsters were about to emerge from the dungeon. The hunter ordered the others to prepare for the battle. The monsters did not make them wait long. The crowd was already taking a step towards the exit, towards the dungeon. The boys did not expect the monsters to come out, because the dungeon had not yet been cleared and had not collapsed. In one blow, May finished off a multitude of monsters. She explained to the hunters that the rules of normal dungeons were not applied in this case, so they had to be on guard. A couple of monsters separated from the crowd and flew directly towards the girl from the dispatcher. Toji and May noticed these monsters. Nanace was the first to react, cutting the annoying shadows with her knife. Mai was amazed by the speed of the boy. She appreciated the boy's reaction, but she advised him to rest after what had happened, and it is better to let her kill monsters. A magical aura surrounded the girl. She was preparing to attack. After waiting for the magical shadows to reunite, she ordered to launch an attack. Activating her ability Kagura Blade, she incinerated the monsters with one blow after another. Toji was surprised by her ability and speed. The hunters of the association did not have time to understand what had happened. May was very fast. The hero remembered that she had used the same ability in the battle with him. On that occasion she tried to escape and did not understand anything, but now she could notice that the blows of her sword were simply fast like lightning. May hurried to cross the crowd of monsters. The crowd of shadows was incinerated in an instant. The girl uses her aura as a protective field, a technique that allows her to obtain an important increase in strength and strengthen her defenses. The girl finished off all the monsters. This is how a true professional looks like according to Toji. The boy thought that she was probably stronger than him. This is the level of mastery that he wants to achieve. The hunters hurried to enter the dungeon to continue cleaning it until it finally collapsed. The spectators of this performance were stunned to see how the girl managed to deal with everyone so quickly. As if a hurricane had passed, Toji came to visit Yoichi at the hospital. The operator was regaining his senses little by little. The hunter was glad that his friend finally opened his eyes. His happiness did not know limits. He told his friend that he fainted when they were attacked by monsters. Suddenly Yoichi remembered something. He asked Ananas what had happened to the boys who had accompanied him. The friend nodded sadly. This news made the dispatcher sad. Toji assured his friend that he had nothing to be blamed for. Nobody could have predicted such a result. Yoichi also asked what happened to the dungeon. The hero told him that a group of hunters led by May went there and already cleaned it. May remained in the dungeon until her magical energy completely ran out, so she probably managed to destroy all the monsters. As expected from a C-rank hunter in Japan's pride, Yoichi concluded. But he still wanted to ask his friend one more thing. How did he manage to get him out of the dungeon? Toji began to explain that two hunters were distracting the monsters. The problem is that Yoichi interrupted him. He saw a blurry silhouette with a black armor. This silhouette looked like the monster he had recently run into. Ananas was nervous when he realized where he was leading all this. Yoichi did not take long and asked the hero if he was number 101. The hero was scared because his identity had been exposed. Toji gathered his forces. He did not know what to answer. Having gathered courage, he finally admitted that he was number 101, and he continued explaining, as if he were in a confession, what had happened the day the first murder took place, and that it was he who killed the Cabaneo squad and himself. Yorchi froze before the information that fell on him, but he did not understand the motives of his friend. Ananas continued to explain that he had to do it because the debt collectors did not leave him or his sister alone. They threatened to take her and he simply had no other option. The dispatcher wanted to know everything, and he asked his friend to tell him everything in more detail. After Toji's story, Yorchi realized that his friend had obtained his power in the dungeon. After which, he unleashed him against the creditors and his friends. Ananas asked his friend for forgiveness for hiding this information for so long. The operator assured the boy that it was not his fault. He just had to be a little more attentive. Yorchi was understanding with his friend, since it was not easy for him. So many difficulties fell on his head. He simply faced them as best he could. However, he asked the hunter what he would do next. Toji would like to keep his identity secret and continue working as a hunter to provide him and Miyu with everything they need. It is unlikely that others will understand that he is not a monster, but a human. From now on he will try not to cause more problems to Yorchi. The dispatcher appreciated his friend's plans, since people with magical powers represent a great threat to the whole world. If the complete truth about the nature of his abilities came to light, he could not protect her. Yorchi advised the hunter to abstain from killing even in self-defense. Everything has its limits. Ananas listened to his friend's instructions. The dispatcher was already quite happy and had a lot of work to do. He was ready to return to work. Toji called his friend. A sincere smile spread in gratitude. He was happy to finally have shared his secret with him. Yorchi accepted with understanding the gratitude of his friend. He also wanted to help him. A new day. The dispatcher provided a list of available dungeons that can be cleaned alone, so that the hero does not have to reveal his secret. If he needs anything else, Yorchi is ready to help. On the way, Nanace met a bewildered girl. She and the boy who was with her asked if he was Toji Nanace. The hero answered affirmatively, formulating a counter-question about who they would be. The couple felt inspired. They did not expect to meet him, so they insisted on an interview and gave the phone to Nanace. The news on the smartphone surprised the hero. The cover showed his photo and his recent achievements, ascending in the hierarchy and setting a record by cleaning more burrows. Toji did not understand what all that meant. The girl explained to him that they had written an article about their deeds. It takes common people at least 3 years to reach this level. They were novice hunters and they wanted to get some advice from a rising star. The hero was confused by his sudden popularity. A multitude of hunters surrounded him, all asking for advice. The guy did not need all this fame for free. Yorchi observed all this. He smiled, thinking that Toji was now a local celebrity. At the same time, the boss Fong was collecting a report from his subordinates about the elimination of Toji Nanace. When he looked at his phone, he saw the latest news. With the hero looking at it, out of anger, the man destroyed his smartphone. Why is this bastard still alive? The boss was outraged. The boys in the jackets did not know what to answer. The man asked where Kabano was, to which they replied that they thought he had already returned. The boss took the bottle. It was clear that Kabano would not return. What a disaster! The man screamed, breaking a bottle in the head of the new pet. He shook himself, and he put the sharp part of the bottle on the neck of Cobalt. The boss was furious. The subordinates watched the whole scene in fear. The man called the squad to meet, and finally contain the hero. The jackets apologized to the boss and promised to treat him immediately. He hit his foot with all his strength. He yelled at his subordinates that they would not ruin his reputation anymore. The man thought that if the boy was not afraid to go out during the day, then he was not afraid at all. He also ordered to bring more people with him and bring the hero's head. If they came with empty hands, they would have it difficult. This young man will know how to make fun of me, the boss concluded angry. Toji arrived at a new D-rank dungeon for his qualification. He was surprised that the environment here was not like in the low dungeons, assuming that now there would be lava and snow everywhere. He was curious to know what kind of monsters lived there. Suddenly, as if they were waiting for a signal, monsters appeared from the lava lake. The hero was surprised to meet the dogs of hell. They expelled coagulos of magma from themselves. The dwarf's reaction did not fail, and he jumped back from the attack in time. He activated his flying step, increasing his speed significantly, having run to the other side of the shore. He managed to escape from the dogs. After taking air, he prepared to attack them. A rain of swords entered the room. Many monsters received fatal damage. Toji rushed to finish off the rest. Parts of the body were scattered throughout the dungeon. The hero noticed that the local monsters were different from those he had seen before. From the remains of the dogs of hell, it was possible to create a 2-star black flame wolf sword with explosive power. Nanace was calculating how many more monsters he needed to kill here to improve his swords. He was glad to go on a solo trip. He felt free in them. Finally, he arrived at the boss of the dungeon. He entered through the door in advance. He was received by a huge lava lake. This time it was hotter. A huge hand emerged from the lava. Toji did not expect the boss to emerge from under the lava and in such a large size. In one blow he took the hand that was approaching. The owner of the extreme began to emerge to the surface. A unique boss, the Shaitan Shaman, appeared before the hunter. As your rank increases, the bosses become stronger, the hero concluded. The concerned monster was angry. The impressive size of the boss only irritated Nanace. He planned to have a lot of fun. The burning shaitan was bigger than the other bosses. Without wasting time, the monster summoned the dogs of hell. Toji took the sword of the lycanthropus. He used the ability of leadership, summoning several Koveals. The monsters grabbed each other in a fight. Having freed himself from interference, the hero went on the attack against the boss. The Shaitan Shaman collects magical energy. The system reported that the monster had used the ability of eruption and advised the guy to withdraw quickly. A flow of lava rushed towards Nanace. This attack only makes it more difficult to approach the boss. But the hero was prepared for such difficulties. Using the flying step ability, he began to climb quickly through the monster's arm. After having punched the monster, he also used the killer title. Shaitan was not shy. His hand was already flying towards the hero. Toji did not expect a counterattack. He barely managed to defend himself, but the lycanthropus sword was shattered into pieces. The hero was not prepared for his sword to break so quickly. At that same moment, the summoned Koveals disappeared, and the dogs returned their attention to the hunter. There was no choice, I had to summon a new sword. The boss did not calm down and directed the lava flows again. Nanace realized that Shaitan was attacking twice at a time. The hero cannot normally land due to the lava that constantly enters. An idea came to his head. He made the dogs that were approaching side by side. He walked through each of them with the speed of lightning. In this way he managed to throw the annoying monsters into the lava. Toji took the perfect moment to attack, and he took a powerful blow with his sword on the enemy's chest. The attack was not powerful enough to damage the monster. In that case, he decided to use the sword of the reptile lord that he received in the dungeon to improve his skills. The hero used the sword's ability, the radiation. He directed the ability beam to the boss's chest and Shaitan screamed hysterically. The ability corroded part of the monster's skin, and the hero found a way to fight it. In an instant, the monster decided to immerse itself in the lava. The access to it is now blocked. Toji lost control of the monster and fell directly into the lava. He decided to take a risk and took out the Warhammer sword from his inventory. Activating the ability of the King of Destruction, he hit the lake, giving access to the boss. The monster did not like to be discovered. Nana imitated Shaitan, noting his cowardice. The boss threw a punch at the guy. The hero again took out the reptile's sword, noting the slowness of the monster. He remembered how Mei could float with the help of a sword, which meant that he could do it too. The hunter gathered all his will in one fist, gathering strength for the blow. The sword blow hit the boss. The attack went straight to the chest. The Shaitan calling fell on the dogs of hell that had emerged from the lake. Finally, the boss was defeated. Suddenly, the system began to inform. Strangers were discovered in the dungeon, probably awake, who had various abilities. Toji was surprised by the system message. Yoichi said he would be the only one there. Perhaps the association made a mistake and decided to go out and tell the other hunters that the dungeon had already been cleared. The door opened and a crowd of people entered. The hero wondered who they could be. They seemed to be employees of the association. The people were getting closer and closer. The men in jackets and glasses never finished. They surrounded Nanace, pointing at him with their weapons. The hero was not surprised by the new circumstances. When he saw insignia on one of them, everything fit. Six Fangs no longer gave him peace. He asked what his purpose was when he came. Behind the jackets was a team of experienced hunters from the Fang group. If the boss had not sent them, they would not even have gotten their hands dirty with him, the man began. The girl insisted that they needed the hero's head. Caused them many problems. Toji got tense. The hero noticed a tattoo with 5 fangs, which meant they were one step above Cabanok. It was funny that they sent so many people to capture him. The man explained that he had nothing personal, and that for them the boss's wishes were law. With a gesture he ordered to kill the hero. Ananase was angry. He would have to work hard to survive and return with his sister.